Hello, everyone. I'll be introducing SPSS. If you are going to open your SPSS, you can see you can see variable view and then data view. So I would like you to open first your SPSS. And then once you have opened your SPSS file, you can actually see these different columns and you have untitled data set, IBM SPSS, Statistics Data Editor. And you can see these different columns, name, type, with decimals, label, values, missing columns, then align, then measures, and then remove. And then at the very bottom, you can find data view and then variable view. So if you notice, the variable view is actually highlighted. And if you're going to click data view, the highlighting is transferred to data view. And you would notice that the screen is also being changed. If you notice here, you have var columns. There are many var columns. Var column, 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 var column. You can find row number 1, row number 2, row number 3, so forth and so on. And you can actually move this one just like Microsoft Excel. And then we'll go back again to variable view. So if we go back to variable view, so we go back to these different columns, the name column, the type column, the width column, the decimal column, so forth and so on, going to the last column, the row column. But if you have a different version, the row column is not actually being found. No? In the old version, the row column is not actually being found. And if you look at the very top portion, you can find file, we have edit, then the view, then the data, transform, analyze, graphs, utilities, then the extensions, and then the window. So the file, if you're going to click the file, you can find there new, open, import data, save all data, so forth and so on, up to switch server repository. And then you can click the edit icon. You can find undo, the redo, then the paste, the insert variable, the search data files, and then options. Then if you click on the view, you can find the status bar, the toolbars, the menu editor, fonts, grid lines, then the last one is data. If you click on the data icon, you can find define variable properties, set measurement level for a node, copy data properties, define date and time, so forth and so on up to select cases, then wait cases. Then if you click on the transform icon, we have compute variable, so forth and so on up to random number generation. Then we go to analyze. If you click on analyze, you can find reports, descriptive statistics up to direct marketing. Then if you click on the graphs, so chart builder up to legacy dialogues. Then utilities, you can find variables, OMS control panel up to map conversion utility. Then you can find the extension hub, then custom dialog builder for extension utilities. So normally, what we commonly use in basics SPSS operations, the analyze, the transform, the data, the view, the edit, and then the file. And then in some cases, the graphs. But in terms of graphs, I always use the Microsoft Excel graphs. So if we click on analyze, for example, reports, you can find different subparts there like code book, then the case summaries, descriptive statistics. You can see frequencies, descriptives, explorer, crosstabs, so forth and so on, up to p plots, then q plots. And if you look up into compare means, you can find one sample t-test, independent sample t-test, up to one-way ANOVA or one-way analysis of variance. Then you can click also into correlation. I mentioned about correlation. So bivariate correlation, partial correlation, up to canonical correlation. Then we go to non-parametric statistics. So we have one sample, independent samples, related samples. Then so forth and so on, up to direct marketing. And then we go to transform also. We can use this one if you're going to compute variables, meaning if we say compute variables, we are going to compute variables like adding values up to variables or adding three values of variables. So we can add it on directly here in SPSS. And then we have also data define variable properties. We can define the variable and then define also the characteristics or the properties of the variables. So let me go first to variable view and then looking at the first column. The first column is all about the name, and this would refer to the name of the variable. So in this column, space is not allowed. You're not going to have a space. So when you are going to encode the name of the variable, avoid space. If the name of the variable is very long, then you are going to have an acronym of that variable. For example, if the variable has only one word and that word is short, then you can just write that variable under name. However, if the name of the variable is composed of many words, you can only abbreviate that one. Just abbreviate that one. Like for example, location of residence as a variable. So if you type there, you can just loc then R. You can just type loc R, location of residence R, so that you have a shorter name in there. The reason why you are going to have their loc then R, then you are going to have that one in that column, location of residence. And when you open that column, it will become a very wide column, a very wide column. So it's just like making a cabinet, a big cabinet, but a small piece of thing will be placed in that. And looking into the Microsoft Excel, having a very wide column, but what you are going to encode there is a two-digit number. So you have a very wide column, but you're going to encode only a single digit or maybe two digits or maybe three digits. So we're going to abbreviate it in a shorter term so that the column is not wide. And when we look at the data to be encoded in there, the data is just fitting to the width of the column. So loc R. And there might be a question, suppose you forget that one. So you can make use of the label. When you click on the label, you can just have now the complete name of the term, location of residence. Location of residence. So you have there loc R and then location of residence as the label. So meaning in the label column, you can now use the space. In the name column, you cannot use space. No, you cannot use space. So it will become an error when you have there a name of the variable, you use the space, then you're going to go to the next variable, it will become an error. So if we click on data view, you notice that the first column is now labeled as loc R. So there is now a specific heading of column number 1. Unlike in Microsoft Excel that you can directly encode the column heading, but in here, looking at the data view, you could not encode directly the heading column. You have to go to the variable view, and looking at the variable view, type here the name of the variable, abbreviated if there's a very long ones, and space is not allowed in here. And the complete name of the variable, that long variable, will be written encoded in the label column. And in the label column, you can actually make use now of the space. So if I go back to data view, so that's actually the first column with the name or the column heading. And if you're going to look at the name locr, and if you forget that one, you can just put the cursor in here, and you would notice after placing locr, then there's a label, location of residence. So it will pop up there. For a moment, I place that location of residence. So you will be able to remember because there's a pop-up there when you place the cursor on top of the name of the column heading. You don't need to go back to variable view and then go to the label column. So while in the data view, you can actually have this here, location. And then put the cursor in there so that you will remember what's the exact name of the variable. So if, for example, I'm going to type here location of residence. So you notice that I use space. So if I click to the other one, so there's a pop-up variable name contains an illegal character. Why there's an illegal character, there's a pop-up here because in the first column, under the name column, you are not permitted to use space because that is only intended for a one-word name of the variable. Okay, so I'm going to click this as OK. And then you notice that there's the type. Now, if you click on the type, column, so type there, so there's actually a dialog box, numeric, comma, dot, scientific notation, and then string. So in here, under type, we are going to classify the variable as quantitative variable or qualitative variable. So on qualitative, we call it on a string. And if it's numeric, you're going to classify that one as quantitative. So location of residence in some research, in my research, for example, we classify that one as rural and then urban. That's our operational definition. So if say rural and then urban, then we click on string because that kind of data is actually qualitative. So qualitative is a term as string in SPSS. So I click on OK. The width of the column is actually having 8, 9, so forth and so on. And that would refer to how wide is the column in the data view. So normally there's a default there, 8. So just click that one, 8, and then decimals. So if your data are quantitative, you're going to indicate how many decimal places. So I'll illustrate that one, for example, later. And then the name of the variable, and then values. No? So values in here, you're going to have coding. No? You're going to have coding. Why are we going to code the data? Because if we don't code the data, we will be typing urban, if what is found in the questionnaire is urban, or you're going to type rural if that is rural. And typing rural will take a long time. Typing urban will take a long time. And typing urban also, there might be some possibilities na you are typing urban in all capital letters, or you're typing urban in all small letters, or you are typing urban in such a way that the first letter is capitalized, the rest are small letters. So there would be many possibilities. So to be safe and to save time also in the encoding, then you are going to have the value labeling. So you are going to say their value. You're going to say 1, well, that would refer to urban. Okay? And then click on add. So once you click on add, in this box, you can say 1 is equal to urban. Then you have 2, rural. Then add. So you would notice in this box, you can see 1 equals urban, 2 is equal to rural. So whenever we encode the data, we just place there 1 for urban and then 2 for rural. And then if, for example, you get a mistake, you can just click this one here and you can remove that one. You can remove that one, so automatically it's being removed. And then if you have to make some changes or two, then we have rural. Then and then once you are done, for example, this one is actually a mistake, so you can highlight that one and then remove and then follow the same process. So you can remove that one and then make some changes. One is equal to urban, then add. So you notice we have these two as our value labels. Then click on OK. And then missing, just leave it there, missing, because that would indicate on some of the missing parts in the questionnaire. In some cases, some of the respondents are not able to answer some items in the questionnaire. But in here, we'll just have that one as missing without doing something in there, because we assume that the retrieved questionnaires are all answered as part of the responsibility of the data collectors or the researchers. See to it that all items are being answered before accepting that return or retrieve the questionnaire. And then the columns. So columns, the default is 8. So you can have 8, 9, so forth and so on. This column align, the same to Microsoft Excel. Alignment should be at the center, or alignment is in the left, or alignment is in the right side. In my case, when I encode data in the Microsoft Excel, I like that the data are placed at the center. And then even here in SPSS, I like that the data encoded are at the center. So here you can click the one, left, right, or center. So I'm going to click center so that whenever I encode the data, then all of the data are in the center. And then nominal measures column. So when I click that one, this will be into the categorization of the variable as the nominal, ordinal, interval, and derivation. In here, when we look up into the 4 intervals in our stat class, but in SPSS, the interval and ratio are combined into one, and that is what we call scale. So when you encounter scale, that would refer to interval or ratio. So there are actually um, things in here. When you click here, you can have nominal, then ordinal, or nominal, and then ordinal. So the classification. No? So nominal, ordinal, and then we have the scale. Scale is a combination of interval and then ratio. So location of residence as to urban or rural is actually nominal. So in most cases, SPSS will give an automatic classification of the variable. But in some cases, SPSS could not actually detect the exact classification of the variable. So you have to look at that column and then see to it that what is being chosen by SPSS is correct. So no one could substitute the human mind. So location of residence, it's about urban and then rural, so it's actually nominal. And then input, role is the input because that's an input variable. So for example, another example, the variable is age. So you can just type age. You don't need to abbreviate it. So it's age in there. So the label has no value. Nothing is to be encoded in the label column because it does not have an abbreviation. If age is in terms of years, so quantitative. So when you click on the type column, the numeric, automatic numeric, so you can click OK. Then still the width is called 8, that's the default. And then we have the decimals. So you notice nga it's 2. But normally when we encode the age, it's only up to 1 to 0 and no decimal place at all. It's a whole number or an approximated age in terms of years, not in terms of a whole number. So we can click on decimals and we can change that one to 0. So 0 means no decimal or a whole number. But if in case your value is up to one decimal place, like 21.1, 22.3, 1.7, then you can actually increase the to 1. 1 meaning one decimal place. If up to two decimal places, like 31.22, 27.97, then you can increase that one to 2. 2 here means two decimal places. So in here, there's no, in terms of values, we don't need to have a label because there are many ages and those terms, that term, age, could have many possible numerical values. So we don't need to label that one. But if, for example, you have sex and the sex is referring to male and then female, so you need to code that one under label, under value label. So you're going to code sex, the same to how I label about the location of residence. Why are we going to label that one? Instead of encoding male and instead of encoding female, which will take a long time, you can code it on one male, then two female. So if that would be the case, following what we did in the location of residence, then you can save time in the encoding. You can just type one for male, then two for female. And typing male would take a long time, and there would be a possibility na all are capitalized, or maybe all are small letters, or maybe only the first letter is capitalized, the rest is small. So when you are going to have the total, then the computer will have a total for all males na all capital letters. The computer will have all males na the spelling is all small letters, or you have a total also for the spelling of males na the first letter is capitalized, the rest are small letters, because the computer will just follow what you have included. But if you're going to have only one for male, then two for female, there's a shortcut in the encoding, and the possibility of committing an error in the encoding would be too low or too small or very slim. Why? Typing one, typing two. Of course, the error there is actually very, very minimal or very, very slim. So that's the reason why we're going to have some values to be labeled. And then missing, just leave as it is, column still 8. And then you are going to have an alignment at the center. And then age is actually in the scale. No? That's in the scale. The scale means a combination of interval or ratio. So input, still that's an input variable. And if you're going to look at into data view, so you notice that the first column is labeled, and then we have age in here, the second column. And you notice there's still a pop-up, and then there's no label of the variable there because we don't abbreviate that variable. So that's it. Those are the basic operations of SPSS in terms of the variable view and then the data view. So when you are going to have now the encoding, sample encoding, for example, you look at respondent number 1. So where is he located? If he's located urban, then 1. And then if the age is 31, then just encode 31. But you notice here, it's 31, not 31. It's actually two decimal place. But originally, we have that data na in zero decimal place or a whole number. So we have to go back to, you notice it's two decimal places. So we go back to variable view, and then we change this one. So we're going to make it 0 so that there's no decimal will appear in the data view. So it's already 0, meaning no decimal place, meaning it's a whole number. So when we go back to data view, it's actually 31, no decimal place at all. So if we go to respondent number 2, for example, the location is rural. So we click on 2, and the age is 54, for example. So it's 54. And then we have variable view. And then do not forget that once you start encoding, even in the variable view, you have encoded already, or in the data view, and going back to the variable view, you have started encoding the name, don't forget to save. So save. So save that one. So when you save, there's the title. So you can have here start 603 first so that's how I normally uh, titled my files in SPSS because every time I teach a stat, that's by semester, first semester, second semester, and then summer. So we have stat 603 first sem data SOI 2022, 2023. And then you're going to save the one. So click on save. So in saving, you can use now the space in here. And I'm going to place that one sa desktop. So click on save. So all the time, no, when you are going to encode something in there, when you start save, and the title, the name of the file will be depending on how are you going to make it. So for now, that's up to that topic. We'll have the second video of the orientation and the basic operation of SPSS. Again, SPSS, Statistical Package for the Social Services.